excellent session. We are in the last session. So we have now 4 presentations from different aspects of EBS, TT, KD and EDS. So we have a distinguished speaker now. Dr. Arup Dasgupta is a well-known electron microscopist in the materials division. What is it? Materials development division.
MMG, Metallurgy and Materials
Metallurgy
Group.
and
We
Materials
haven't left out the materials as such.
Oh, okay. So followed by Dr. Nilesh from IIT Kanpur, he will present, and followed by Dr. Pradeep, and one of my PhD students will present on my behalf, because he is the one who has done actually the work. So I'll request Arup to give
Thanks a lot, Sharma.
15 minutes.
You told me 25, but I can stop whenever you want. Okay, never mind. So basically, what I tried to do here is a tutorial on the kind of EBSD tomography that we do. We have a EDAX system, of course, connected to our Helios 600i. That's a dual beam SEM. So I will try to take you through a journey as to how do we do this EBSD. So this is forward. Yes. Okay, I have to be close. Yeah, maybe I have to be close. Okay, fine. So basically, you all
need to be close.
Yeah, maybe. So focused ion beam is what we use, right? Gallium, and then gallium is ionized to triple plus, and then this was developed way back in 1970s and 80s, and we are using this technique. So basically, why gallium? Because it has a pretty low melting temperature, close to the room temperature, around something like 27.9 degrees Celsius and so on. It has a low vapor pressure, so you do not lose too much. And then the okay, fine. This should work. Yeah, it's very directional. Oh, again, same problem. Ooh. So basically, as you know, so you can also try to use something like indium, bismuth, tin and gold, but they do not have all the properties of gallium. So of course the tungsten needle part is not what I am going to discuss. It is mainly used, I think it is there also for your FIB, but that will be used for the TEM lamellae preparation, which is not in the scope of my talk. Takes time. Yeah, okay. Maybe I stand here and use directly from here. So basically, gallium extraction is what you do is that you have a tank of gallium, right? You keep it filled. It has a very long lifetime. You apply very, very high electric field, and then the gallium gets ionized, and you have a positively charged gallium, which can be accelerated up to as much as the electrons are accelerated in your SEM column. That's pretty simple. And this is how it comes out, and it has a Taylor cone, and you are just going to get it through the extraction aperture. And to have the optics, of course, you have optics which is similar to the electrons. Yeah. So you have an electromagnetic coil and a mass selector as well as a beam deflection coil. Beam deflection coils are extremely important because finally you are going to scan it, just like a SEM. So this is very important as you do the 3D EBSD, is what angle you are going to put, what is the geometry you are going to use. So it's extremely important. As it happens here, you can look very carefully. What it does is the number of atoms per cc, and this is per steradian. So it basically peaks at 0. So always you have to cut at end on. Gallium should come end on. Don't choose any other angle in order to cut. That will have the maximum efficiency for the cutting. So I think you have a similar system, not the Helios, I think the more advanced one which you got now, right? So a little bit about the interaction. This is of course a SIM, and there are two types of things that I am showing here. Here of course you have the ion trajectories. This is how the ions will move through as it penetrates into your specimen, but they also generate lots of cascades, right? So effective volume that is interacted will be slightly wider. This is going to depend on the kind of Z that you are using, either it's cobalt and silicon is the two examples that I am showing here. And what you need to worry is the width, basically what is the width here that's coming out, and the depth. This is very important, this knowledge you need as you do the cutting for any purposes. So basically what does it depend on? Other than Z, please note that it also depends on orientation, because these ions, all of, if you are doing little bit of TEM as well, you will know there is something called a channeling contrast. So ions prefer to travel through channels. What are channels is the empty space between the atoms. So if you are aligning your crystal very nicely, the ions would like to go through the center rather than striking and go. So the channeling is very important. Therefore there is a lot of dependence on orientation, and the surface geometry matters. So what I am trying to show you here is basically, see, we are using the same kind of conditions, right, and we have 3 metals and a silicon. The technique was basically developed for silicon and not so good for metals. You need to be really skillful to be using it for metals, and I am going to tell you why. Silicon, of course, no problem, it is used in the silicon industry left and right for all quality control and stuff like that. So basically what is happening, this is zinc, this is copper, if you can read from the back, this is aluminum and this is silicon. You see, covalently bonded silicon is very clean, there is no problem at all. But once you start using copper or zinc, or you have, what are these? You have lot of this kind of curvatures. These are actually basically redepositions. It depends on your pumping system. So as you will see that these features will depend from the Zeiss microscope to the FEI microscope and so on. Is the number of IGPs that you are inserting into the gallium column, very simple. FEI sort of always puts one more IGP 4, which is very useful. If you are using a Zeiss machine, you will see more of these redepositions, by the way. And but whatever it is, you still will be having this kind of structures. That is the copper which has been removed. The pump is not efficient enough to suck it away. So they get redeposited, and you always start getting that. And if you look at it in even lower magnification, it will look like curtains, and they always call it the curtaining effect. Now, you can actually basically download this. You have all the sputtering rates for all the elements, most of the elements and the standard compounds that you may use during the course of your work, silicon, carbon, gold, titanium nitride, nickel, so on and so forth, you get the sputtering. This is very important as you design your experiment. So let's look at these two, silicon and copper, very interesting. So if you look very carefully, they have identical sputtering rates, which means that at a given current, that is given ion current, you are going to take same amount of time to remove same amount of material. Here it is 500 meter cube. So you need roughly about 0.7, that's around what, 42 seconds. 42 seconds to remove so much of material if you are using 45 nanoamps. If you use something like 500 picoamps, it's as much as an hour to remove the same material. So you need to optimize, So the main thing is that your pumping system should be efficient enough, should have the same rate of suction as you are removing material. Otherwise you will see a lot of curtains. So this is where you need to optimize the system. So you look here. So what happened? Oh, I am doing both. Yeah. So if you look at it very carefully now, we are talking about copper and silicon. Maybe the volume removed is same. You see, copper has a larger depth and silicon has a lower depth. It's very clean, but copper has all this very dirty. So maybe when you are doing copper, don't use the same kind of current as you will be using for silicon. If you are working with silicon, your work may be over very quickly. But something for a metallic system, let me tell you, if you want to do a 3D EBSD of something like 8 micron by 8 micron by 8 micron, it might take 3 days. So basically what you can do lots of things. You can etch a desired pattern, you can do TEM lamellae preparation and so on, but what we will talk about is only the tomography. What I will do is I will pick up 2 case studies. I will take a steel which is very common, that is a P91 steel which is heavily rolled and annealed. So you will have structures. You have a beta titanium alloy, 3555, which is basically more towards beta, and you will see what's going on. We'll try to pick up one by one. So what we are doing here is that we are rolling it, right? So we have two planes. One is the RDTD, we call it plane 1, and then the RDND, call it plane 2. And we heavily roll down to some 88% and so on. Let's see what happens. So this is what is there. Look at the EBSD microstructure. So I will not go into the analysis of the EBSD, texture plots and things like that. I am only concentrating on microstructure point of it. If you look at it very carefully, you have different kind of grains, right? These are relatively larger grains, these are smaller grains, there are orientation preferences and so on. We don't discuss here. But what is most important is you look at it, if you look at it at the plane 2, it looks completely different. So this is a case which we can study in a 3 dimension as to what is happening. We anneal the same plane 1, and you see, again you see a bimodal distribution. You see very large grains and you also see very small grains. Okay? Let's not discuss the texture part of it, only the morphology. And if you look at it at the plane 2, still there is a difference. Okay. So what do we do? Basically tomography, yeah. So this is, you go to doctor with some severe pains, not going away quickly. So you will be put on these and you have no option. But what we are doing here is basically we are trying to see the structures, different kind of structures that is there within a 3-dimensional volume. So whatever we know so far as a pixel will be known from now on as a voxel. Yeah, that the terminology changes from pixel into pixel is a voxel. So, and the only difficulty is that this is a destructive method. Okay, this is a destructive method unlike your computed tomography, and where basically what we are doing is we are creating several slices. The slices are removed, they are analyzed and removed, analyzed and removed, analyzed and removed, and then you have a reconstruction of all the slices. Okay. So what is the geometry? The geometry, by the way, again is system dependent. Okay, this is what I am showing you is for a FEI microscope. If you are using a Zeiss microscope, the EBSD will be on the other side. So you have to know. So what is happening is, if you are using a FEI microscope, few things you have to note. So you have to really put your sample at the crossover. That's very, very important. And the company is going to tell you what is the ideal crossover. At the crossover is where your electron beam and the ion beam cross. You have to bring your sample there, and that is also your eucentric. So eucentric means if you tilt, yes, your region of interest is not going to move away. That's very important. These alignments you have to do very, very critically before you start your experiment. Next thing that is important to note is that when you load your sample, this is a pre-tilted holder that we always prefer to use, but what we are using here is a pre-tilted holder which has one side 36, another side is 54, okay, and this angle is 52. So we use the 36 tilted by 16, so you get 52. So where do you get 52? It's on the small edge, it's on this side, okay. So it's like your Cadbury wafer, the side that you are eating, that is the side that we are doing the EBSD on, yeah. So basically you are slicing from this direction. So the biggest advantage of the FEI design is that as you remove your material, you can appreciate that the material is removed in this direction. So your EBSD, not on your EBSD side. So the EBSD need not be retracted. If you are using a Zeiss machine, you have to retract the EBSD machine because you will be removing material in the direction of your camera, which is otherwise you will deposit all the material on your camera. So the disadvantage is that you have to rotate your sample. So this is a pretty complex mechanism which happens. So what is going on if you look back? So basically what you have is a geometry which looks like this, and everything is automated, by the way. So there is something called a AutoFib or a AutoTame or a Auto EBSD, all these things are there with you, and you can use all these and it works, but you have to align it properly. So what is happening is that EBSD remains where it is, your sample has rotated by 180 degrees, okay. So now what is happening, you see, you don't do anything else, you just rotate by 180 degrees. So this 16 is now supposed to be subtracted from 36. You will end up with 20. So automatically this is 70. Okay? So you are already having the 70. So once you have 70, there is no problem with the EBSD. The only difference is that your EBSD cannot be done at 4.1. So come down little bit. So always ask your engineer to align your EBSD as close to the crossover point as possible. So we prefer something like 6. So ask them to align between 4 and 8. Okay? Do all the calibration of the EBSD between 4 and 8. If you move too much, you might lose your fiducial every time you rotate, especially as you keep moving, the fiducial also gets weaker and weaker and weaker, because it is being imaged by both by gallium beam and the electron beam. So that's very important. So as you can see here, we have gone to 6 mm. We have gone down, so we have basically rotated 180 degree, gone down by 2 millimeters, 1.9 millimeters, yeah. And once you define that, and you start doing the EBSD. The whole thing, this is an automated process, by the way, you don't do it manually, it's impossible, because you will be doing hundreds of slices or some 300 slices and all, you can't do manually. So everything is to be set up there. You have to do few times manually and check if everything is working fine, and you set up the program, sit there for an hour like this and see, okay, yeah, doing it's going on, it's okay, fine, going back. So please understand that when you want to do the milling, so once one slice EBSD is over, what will happen is that it will just turn back, it will slice again, it will turn back, go up, okay, slice, and then come down back to here, okay. And during the slicing also you can declare, so for example, you can have a high angle, high current slicing followed by a low current cleaning. That's very important. Unless you clean, you won't be able to do your EBSD, your patterns will not come. Okay, so this is to be noted, okay, so because you have changed the working distance, try to get your working distance for EBSD as close to the crossover as possible. So what are you doing? As I told you, it's on the thin edge, yeah, this is your region of interest. What I did not tell you is that we always cover the top with platinum. The reason is, you are bombarding high energy, the gallium beam directly on your specimen, and once you do that, it damages the top surface. As it impacts, it damages the top surface. So put platinum, and that sort of protects the layer. The platinum is very important. The other thing to note here is put some 1 or 2 of these cross marks. They are called fiducials, and teach your program to always look for them as and when they rotate, because it is those fiducials which is used to align your sample. Okay, that's very important. Okay, so this is what is generated. If you look very carefully, I think it's running. Yeah, it's running. Yeah, so these are all the things. So if you look again very carefully, look very carefully. So basically try to concentrate on this green grain and the blue grains, okay. So right at the end, we have removed the other, all other grains, okay. Just concentrated on the 2. I really do not know whether the grain surface looks so rough in reality as it looks here. It looks very unrealistic, but this is what it is. I mean, this is what the experiment gave. Please remember, there can be errors when you are joining the slices. Normally we use Amira. I don't know what software you will be using. We use Amira for the 3-dimensional reconstruction when you create the voxels as you join, and that time you have to align. You have to align against orientations, align against pixels. I mean, that is again something that you have to understand what to do. So this can be a problem, but you see very jagged surfaces. I don't know whether it's a problem because of the rolling or it is really that way. So if you go to the 3-dimension, this is what it's going to look like. Please do not concentrate on all these pixels. They have not been indexed. So we are not trying to correct it anyway. So this is after annealing. Okay. This is another way of doing. If all these slices are generated. Okay. I am not showing all the slices. But you see now the grains are really large, but and you can see the three-dimensional formation of the grain. You can really pick up. It looks cleaner now, of course, after the annealing has been done. Little bit into the beta titanium alloy, and the results were not as good. So this is again, as you can see, these are all beta grains. Okay, they are all variants from the high temperature beta. They continue to remain. The beta has grown out from a single nuclei and then grown like a star pattern in all directions. This is a modified aerospace alloy, not the titanium 6 aluminum 4 vanadium. This is the other one. So if you pick up the beta grains, this is how it looks like. Again, I am not really convinced if the surface of the grain should really look like that, but this is how it is picked up. And you can make a phase map, and you can have a IPF map, and whatever you want you can try to do. This is of course a different annealing condition. Comparing with 2D, yeah, the resolution I think is much better as compared to the 3D. That's simply because during your gallium milling, the surface is not as good as you would prepare in a vibratory polisher or a OPS solution or things like that. Maybe your cleaning can be better, but if you are really pursuing the subject, I think you can improve. But after doing some work, we were not as convinced. You know, the 3D EBSD looked like okay, looking at structures more than orientations. I don't know. This is where we were, because as you can see, the resolution hit by 2D EBSD is far better if you concentrate on that. And little bit before I finish, I think I am on time, very good on time. Okay. So basically what is coming up, and I am sure all the manufacturers of the dual beam microscopes are working on it. FEI, ZEISS, they are all working on it. It should be there in the market in 1.5 to 2 years. So you will not have gallium column anymore. So you are going to have the plasma column, xenon plasma column. Okay, the paper is already there in the ultra microscopy. You can download and read. I just picked up some very interesting data. If you look at it carefully, okay, this is what is xenon. Okay, and this is your LMIS gallium. You see, you did no linearity. They're very difficult to control. As you increase the beam current, it suddenly exponentially increases, something that you don't want. This is very linear, and you can really control your H rate, whatever you want. And without compromising, what it shows here is the volume removed per ion beam current. That remains basically similar as compared to gallium, and xenon doesn't vary too much, looks almost same. And this is of course trying to put, everybody likes to put this Ashby kind of plots for whatever talk they make. Attempted. So this is the volume of material, and this is the voxel dimensions, this is the atom probe. So you already have. And if you are using transmission electron microscopy tomography holders, where you will have a tilt, you will have to generate a tilt series, you can generate a tomography. So this is what you are something like a nanometer and so on. And for the gallium and the xenon, we are here, something around 100 nanometer range. There is also something called nano X-ray CT. We rarely do this. There is microtomy, of course. This is the bread and butter for the biologists, not us. This is human beings are put into that machine that I told you. It's of the order of millimeters, and the doctors can take a look at you. I think with that I finish. Okay, the acknowledgements for all my members in my group, and some of my seniors, and also Shanub and Dipankar were sharing the titanium samples.
See, we were looking at 3D EBSD with a lot of hope.
So were we. And then Indra always told us, don't do that. That is utter nonsense, but we kept pursuing for nearly 2 years. We also did together something I did with this guy from your place. What is his name?
Shashank.
Shashank. See, the problem is, as I told, one is the alignment of your data, A, which is you choose, you match orientations or you match pixel colors. That is true for every case actually. The other problem is the gallium milling and the cleaning. Okay. The third problem is you choose a sample which is nanocrystalline yet gives beautiful patterns, this will work. Get a sample with 100 nanometer grain size, nice round 100 nanometer grain size, then do all the analysis fine. But which metallic system, of course you can, unless you are working with SPD, which metallic system is going to give you that kind of thing?
Because it could have addressed very fundamental issues, right? Like looking at the grain boundaries.
Yes, that was the triple point and the dihedral angles where we started that with all that hope, but did it come?
Because for like we work on deformation, so like we would have really liked to see what is the shape of a deformation twin in 3D, because that is something that we don't know.
TEM tomography. TEM tomography should be able to do it much convincingly. Very convincingly. Huh? Yeah, alignment.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, let's thank Arup.
Thank you.